Okay, I'm back. We were dealing with landscapes, and the idea here is we've put some restrictions at the back end so our character can't go out that way, but we want to build some sort of depth to the level. I think I might have the level sort of scroll across the screen, and so I just want it to feel like there's a vast landscape out there, or at least us as the developers have some ability to change and make the background cool. So let's go into modes, go into landscape, and I'll show you what I learned from the tutorial.
Hey, what's going on? Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to say that the tutorial that I'm referencing is available in the link below. It's from Ben Cloward. He does a really good job and goes into far more detail than I ever could on landscapes, etc. He's got a lot of industry experience and really good pacing. So if you're interested in that and want some more information on landscapes, etc., then check it
out. When we configure this in this section, and I've been playing around with it a little bit already, but when we configure it in this section, quads are these tiny little squares. So you'll see section size 63 by 63 quads. Those are those little squares. The big squares are components. You can have less components, but then have larger components. So, I could change around the settings to have these 9 squares be one component, which would be less intensive on the CPU. But then larger components are more intensive on the GPU. So essentially all it is a bit of a balancing act between the two, depending what you're doing. We're pretty much going to land in the default settings. I'll just show you quickly, if I can pull it up here, in the Unreal documentation here. So if you scroll down in this section here, it actually tells you, sort of already some pre-balanced metrics that Unreal would suggest. With our size of landscape, I guess I should show you that before I go into that explanation. So if I scroll over here, you can see that I can see landscape what seems like a reasonable distance away from a regular person. And then I'm going to, like I said, I don't think I'm going to allow this level to go on and on and on. What I think I'm going to do is sort of scroll the level this way. So if we think that this is the edge that our character can go to on the left, then we can see that the landscape sort of continues on and we don't have any sort of issue of like it just ending and having some weird views. And if we do a little bit of playing with the camera, I don't plan on doing too many camera rotations. I think I'll use it once in a while to do some change up and have some cool effects. But I think there's enough of a landscape around to sort of make it feel realistic when we do that. So it feels like the right size with what I had there. And like I said, I played around a little bit to get to 5x5 to get to that size. And then I started thinking about, well, the whole, component sizing and that sort of stuff. And I looked at the chart that I had up. And with 5x5, we end up with 316 by 316. If we look at the chart on the overall sizes, we end up in between these two settings. So we don't have, it's not spelt out for us. But if you look, they're using 63 for every single size until they get to, extremely large sizes. So I think we'd be dumb to change that. And then we could change 1x1 or 2x2 in here because it's different. We're kind of in between. And then this is your components, the number of components. And those are those larger squares. Ours currently we have 25. So again, we fall in the middle here. So I think we'd actually be fine if we went with either setting. This is the default setting for 8x8. We're doing 5x5. So I think just to keep it easy, the settings that come up out of the box are these. And we're not going so much smaller. So rather than changing things and getting some different experience, I'm just going to go with the default settings, knowing that it lands in two of those. So that's the logic I'm using. Hopefully that's right. And I'm just going to create a landscape. And then we'll just quickly build in some depth behind our scene here. And this is just going to be temporary, but I want to build sort of a look and feel. So let's get our brush size around 500, I think is fine. Strength at 0.3 is good, and then we'll just build in a little bit of volume. Terrible. Yeah, it looks really jaggedy. I mean, it's kind of doing the point, right? The point is just to build it some depth. It just looks a little broken, right? Like some of those edges are jagged, which that's not what I was going for. How do I, where's the smooth? Oh, there you go. I'm going to smooth it out a bit. See if that helps. Okay, good enough. Good enough. We're not going for perfection here. We just wanted to have a reason for why he can't go out this way, and I think that's starting to give the reason. Later on, we'll go and we'll get some assets from. Oh, I got to block him from going that way too. We'll get some assets from the store, or wherever, the marketplace for free, of course, or maybe we'll use mega scans. Yeah, then we'll fix all that up later. Okay, cool, good enough. We've got some depth to the level for now, and then what do we want to do? Oh yeah, we want to go with the idea. So here, let's get out of the landscape mode. We wanted to go with the idea of, I had this yesterday, of it's hard to jump up here, and then we're worried about the X plane, and I don't want our users to have to struggle with that, because I'm going to kind of build an in-your-face sort of thing where the level's coming at you. The last thing you want to do is have it like be a pain in the ass to like jump on these things and whatnot. I feel like it would be more controlled if we, had like magnetic boots or something where they could like cling to this. But I'm thinking, because we learned about it yesterday, I'm actually just going to leverage what we learned yesterday and see if we can build something and see if it works. So what I'm thinking is, we learned about that constrain to plane in our character movement here. Where is it? Yeah, this guy. And this was initially what was keeping our dude from breaking the Y plane, right? There was I think there was a Y, it was like this. It was like this with the constraint to plane off. So we turn this off and reset this to 0. I'm thinking we can leverage this functionality. Like there's got to be a way to do that on a button press. So if we went out and we went to our settings and we went to input, and we've got a jump action. Like what if we mapped a new button, and I'm just going to use the bottom trigger on the right side. I think that feels logical. So the gamepad right trigger axis, and we'll call this constrain to plane. And now we have an action mapping, right? And so then with that in our character blueprint, if I'm right, then we should be able to, just like input action jump here, input action let's just type it out. Constrain to plane, right? And now on that press, I'm assuming that we could do constrain to plane with our movement, right? So character movement, constrain. I'm just going to click back on this for a reference. Whoops. Right, so we're looking for plane constraint normal, plane constraint origin, and let's see what happens. So constrain constrain plane, set plane constraint, axis setting, normal origin. Look at that. So I have a feeling that if we, boom, stick this bad boy in here, what was our setting from yesterday? It was 1. If we hit this at 1 on the button pressed, that it's probably going to constrain our dude to the plane. Let's see. So, why is that not working? Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Let's think that out. So this has got to be. Oh, I know why. All that's doing is setting this value. But if we don't turn this thing on, then how can changing the value does nothing, right? So if we enable it, but that's going to constrain our dude right away. What if we enable it and hit this to 0? So if we enable that, set it to 0, and compile this, and then go back, if I start, I'm not touching anything yet. I can still move around because it was set to 0. Then when I hit the button, yeah, look at that. Oh, but he's stuck here now. So we've got it to react to the button. You press this button, but then once it releases, you're going to want to take it off because it's not being taken off. So then if we set it afterwards, set plane constrain normal. If we reset it to 0 after the fact, and we don't need 2 of these, so let's do this. Boom, boom, compile, save. If we do that, what happens? I'm holding it down, he's stuck, I let go, and he moves again. That's awesome. So now if I hold it, if I line myself up, I hold it, I jump, now he's on this, now he's constrained to this plane, which is pretty cool. Cool. Oh yeah, you know what? I was messing around with the jump settings, and I should let you in on that. I shouldn't have changed that. I should have waited, but I was trying to figure something out for something else I was doing, and I used this instead of the sandbox. But I do want to use it here. So if we click on the character movement, since we're in there already, the default setting for jump is, I'll just compile that, is 1,000. And I don't like that. So you see, if we jump, it just feels like, yeah, like super floaty. You saw that there where he like jumped and then he's just, I don't know. To me, it feels like unnatural for the type of game that we're building. Like I think in a world explorer, you want a big jump and floaty to be able to do some things like that. But in ours, where I'm using the constraint that we just built, in ours, when we're like doing this, like to me, it just feels a little bit, I don't know. I don't really like it. So I'd like the jump to be a little bit more snappy. And the other thing that we worked on, or that we talked about, was that the camera was too high. So I actually dropped, I'll share with you the value. I dropped the, where this camera was sitting, I dropped it down probably about like an inch on the screen. Where would that show up? Oh yeah, so there you go. I dropped it to -90 in the character viewport. And the reason being is if, let's just put this back to like 0 or whatever. And if we play, I think that's kind of where it was before. If we play, we've got this airy jump that I want to fix. But then also, you lose the ground for too long. Like, I don't like that feeling when you're floating and you have no idea where your character's going to land. Like, it's okay for a short second, but that's way too much. So if we go into our character blueprint and we go back to the character movement, we put in jump. I tried setting this at 500. And it wasn't high enough. I mean, there's some thought that needs to go into, I mean, do we want this to be realistic? Like, how high should our character actually be able to jump? I feel like that's too small. Like, even though that's way more realistic, that you could only jump up this little box here, like half your height. Like, that's actually quite high for realism. But I think we want to be in the realm of like, kind of not superhero, but maybe like superhuman, like a Punisher kind of guy. If you're familiar with comics like Batman, where, you know, a little bit more of the comic style, but not full superhero can be given. So I think a nice balance is, you know, being able to jump this high that's unrealistic, but that's it. Like, that would be the top of our range. So let's go in between 1,000 and 500. I picked 850, and it seems to get him to the top of this block. By the way, I'm using this constrain to plane already, and it just feels nice. Like, it's easy to hit that top trigger button. It doesn't, like the first trigger button often feels like a shoot, but this feels right for holding the guy there. So I think this is right. So he won't be able to jump up there. We'd have to lower that. But, you know, he can jump here. And then once he is up here, you lose the ground, but only for a short second. I do think that maybe we want some snappiness on the return flight down. So I might change some of these too. We'll have to play around, and maybe I'll come back and let you know or we can play around with it together. But I think this video is getting a little bit long. What are we at here? Oh, I can't tell how long we've been on, but it feels like it's getting a little bit long, and I'm trying to condense these. So yeah, that feels like a good place. We'll try and make his jump just a little bit more snappy. There's a couple other things that I do want to do in the next video, which is, I think that since we've got this guy constrained, I like the idea of, like, if this is a shooter, and I'm sort of coming to that conclusion organically as we're playing around and making this level, but with this constrained plane, I automatically started thinking about, well, that's cool. Now you can hold him in place, and you can kind of be able to target and shoot while you're still moving, which would be like, you're almost like a turret, which I think would be a cool aspect. If you're firing bullets around here, boom, 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 and you're able to look different directions, that's cool. You could run, you know, constrain yourself to a plane right here, you know, not run too far, and then cut. So I think it's kind of like a cool dynamic. But I want to, we talked about Sunset Riders yesterday. If you're familiar with that, or you're familiar with the original Contra, I'm thinking now with this constraint to plane, it would feel really cool if I pressed up with it, that I started aiming up, and I could shoot up as well, right? So you hold this guy, and now, you know, if you point up, you can also shoot up. We'll have to figure out what feels natural there, but I think I'm going to add in some aim offsets and things like that to get this guy aiming. And then the other thing that I kind of thought of when I was playing around was, it'd be cool if I pressed a button and he stuck his back to any wall. Boom, stick your back on a wall, and then you can kind of like pico around the corner until you let go of that. So it'd give us like some cool dynamics. So like here, you know what I mean? I could stick my back on the wall for cover, and then, you know, shoot that way. Or, you know, I could go here, stick on the cover, turn around and shoot at anything that was coming, and then use some of that aim offset. So I'm thinking that would be cool. And then lastly, I also wanted to put in, like, not a strafe, but I thought like a roll. Like, if you think of Star Fox, like the barrel roll, you can do left and right. I thought that would be cool as a character, that you could, you know, potentially barrel roll left and right around some objects, and then you're really starting to create some dynamic there. So I think that stuff's a little bit more advanced, but that being said, I want to do it, and I think it's important. So we'll do that one in the next one, and go from there.